Hey Olga, how you doing? Hi Martin and Naomi. Okay, we got Veronica. Okay, who else? Oh, Larry, how you doing? Eloise is here. Okay, great.
Hi.
How you doing?
Great. I had a terrible time this morning with trying to get on.
Okay. Any particular reason why that you could figure out?
I used the ID that you gave us for Monday and it never did work. So I thought it was the same for every day, but you
Well,
Beverly sent me this
the
one.
password is. Yeah, the password is. The link is not. The link is going to be different for every class.
Where do we get the link then?
I had sent it out in that email that listed all of the classes during the week. Did you get that?
Okay, I'll check it again. I didn't see.
Okay, if you
I
didn't,
saw that.
if you didn't get it, then send me an email and I'll resend it to you. Okay.
Thank you. Beverly sent it to me, so I think I have it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did not get your list.
You did not.
No, somehow I don't get your emails or something.
Okay. You don't get the emails that I reply to?
No, I don't know. It's like,
Well, wait a minute. Now you sent me some things and I replied, and then you replied back. So you've got to be getting something.
yeah, I'm getting when it's like personal. Maybe I am not on the list or something.
You are. I know you. Okay, but I'll tell you, I'll be happy to send you a send it all to you directly. Okay, just on
Oh,
Picture
email.
behind you. I like that picture behind you, Ilion.
what?
Oh,
The picture behind
Yeah,
me?
yeah.
It's Kandinsky,
Oh, okay.
but Vasily Kandinsky.
yeah. You were talking about trying to become Kandinsky.
I want to be Kandinsky, just I don't know whether it's working.
Yeah. Well, actually, he would not be a bad person to want to become. You know, he has. Well, he had been credited with being the person who basically, came up with the idea of abstraction. Okay.
Could you spell that name, please?
It's Vasily Kandinsky. Kandinski, I think.
Why?
Or why? Okay.
Yeah.
Kandinsky. Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about him. Okay. I'll pull some stuff of his because the story basically goes he has been for a long time credited with coming up with this idea of abstract art, but in fact, and that was in like 1914 or 1915, but in fact there was a woman who it's Olga Off Klint, Klint was her name, and this is in 1901. She actually really did the very first abstract work, though she didn't really call it abstract. For her, it was sort of like communicating with the spiritual world. She was a member of a theosophical society. And just, what was it? It's probably only been about 15 or 20 years that they discovered her work. And that was all around 1901, 1902, right around the turn of the century. And her things were, as abstract as anything out there today. And it's really interesting work when you look at these pieces. But, I'll, we'll do a class just on the two of them. And so you guys can kind of take a look at that. Okay. Anyway, I want to get started. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. If you weren't here this morning, we got into some, some things that I wanted to talk about, okay? Because right now, socially out there in the world, there's a lot of things going around. There's a lot of protests, a lot of marches against racism and against, police brutality, things like that. All good things, all right? And as an artist, you have to ask yourself, okay, at least I do, what's the function of art? If it's to reflect our society, if it's ways of having conversations and opening up those conversations about uncomfortable subjects such as racism, such as police brutality, things like that. What are the ground rules for things like that? Or are there any ground rules? Should there even be ground rules? Okay. And what's happening right now, and it in many ways, okay, it bothers me because there are artists out there producing artwork, about the things that happened to like George Floyd or, some of the other people who have unfortunately been killed. And they're getting a lot of backlash. They're getting a lot of backlash from, African-American artists, because they're not Black artists, and yet they're doing this artwork, about these social issues. And that seems, to me, it just seems strange. I understand, there's and particularly in millennials and younger, there's this big idea about cultural appropriation and about how, people have had their cultures appropriated. Well, that's been part of history forever. Yeah. The Romans appropriated everybody's culture. The Greeks appropriated everybody's culture. The Egyptians did as well. And that's always been a part of any cultures whenever they meet, whenever they come together. There's some cross appropriation. In my family's case, in my ancestors' case, because I have Native American ancestry, yes, whites did appropriate and have appropriated a lot of our culture, okay? But it's gone the other way as well, okay? When you look at people from the Navajo Nation, all the way back in, say, around, 1830, 1840, traditional Navajo dress never included cotton cloth, right? And yet, after about 1840, if you look at traditional Navajo dress at that point, all of the women were making, their clothing out of what they call cotton gingham. A lot of flowery prints, things like that. And so, there's these exchanges, these interchanges between those cultures. And that's part of the conversation, the process of conversation. And all cultures sort of adopt things from each other. A more recent example is, and not necessarily in visual art, but let's say music, all right? Hip hop. Hip hop came out of, basically poorer Black neighborhoods, all right? And yet today, when you look at a wide array or a list of hip hop artists, you find people from all cultures, okay? Asian cultures have hip hop now. Even Hispanic cultures, have appropriated hip hop into their music. White culture has done that as well. So, there's always this back and forth. And in this one particular example, and I was talking about it at the end of the last class, you have a, you would refer to her as a white woman, even though she's, she's Jewish. And certainly if you look at the history of Jewish culture, You know, they've had their struggles, right? And so she's making a comment, you know, in doing this piece of work that hung in the Whitney Museum about this young man. His name was Emmett Till, and this was back in 1955, I believe. He was murdered. Why was he murdered? Okay, because supposedly he made some kind of comment to a young white woman, right? And so, you know, they beat him to death. And okay, so anyway, here it is. It's 2016. You know, she makes basically a political comment or statement about, you know, this incident. And the backlash from that was pretty severe. Um, and a lot of African American artists, you know, at the time, you know, took offense to that. And, you know, and I don't know, you know, I read a lot of articles on it at the time, and, you know, you still go back and, you know, there's a lot of articles and things going on about, you know, the artwork being done about George Floyd right now. And a lot of it is being done by white artists, Black artists, Asian artists. You know, I mean, even in Europe right now, you know, there's a lot of protests and things going on. And most of those artists are not Black. And yet they're appropriating that image of George Floyd as a symbol or a representation, you know, for a movement, you know, for an ideal that things have to change, right? Um, and so, you know, there's always this back and forth, you know, in the cultural communities about what's appropriate, you know, and why. You know, it's like, why are people doing the artwork that they are? And I don't know how you feel, okay? And I'd be interested in hearing, you know, when you look at this piece of artwork, and this was done by Dana Schutz, or Schutzman is their actual name. And then I'm going to show you the piece of artwork that was done more or less in response to it. And there's a long history of these conversations going back and forth, okay? But this took on some actual physical action as well, okay? So this is the painting by Dana Schutz, and it hung in the Whitney in 2016. It was a biennial. And it was about Emmett Till and about the fact that his mother decided to have an open casket funeral for him to show the world what they had done to her 14-year-old son, okay? And in response to that, you have an artist by the name of Parker Bright, and he wasn't the only one, but you know, he was one of the more vocal artists who did this in response, okay? Now, this is a piece of his artwork, okay? And he is standing in front of the painting that Dana Schutz, you know, did. Now, in reality, at the actual opening of this show, there were about 20 or 30 African-American artists who showed up, and they basically formed a wall around this so that people couldn't view the painting. Okay. You know, all with, you know, gray t-shirts with, you know, Black Death spectacle, you know, basically plastered on the back. And that was their political statement. Okay. And so, you know, art, you know, a lot of people don't think of, you know, doing art or producing art. A lot of artists are not necessarily political, but, you know, art has always been used as a political tool, okay? Well, you know, ever since the pharaohs, right? You know, all of those hieroglyphics and those paintings and the tombs and everything else, that was all propaganda. You know, it was all telling their story, you know, from their particular viewpoint, okay? You know, contemporary artists are telling it from their viewpoint. So we have now, you know, a situation in the art world, you know, and it's ongoing, where it's like, the question is, if we all live in a society together, right, and we're all viewing it, and we may have different points of view on it, you know, why is one artwork or one artist doing work on a subject more valid than another? Okay. And that's the question I'll pose to you. All right. And I want you to think about that. And if you have some kind of response to that, you know, I'd like to see, you know, what you think about that. Okay. So anyway, this is, as I said, this is Parker Bright and his work. Okay. Anyway, so enough of that. Anybody have any comments about that right offhand?
I do.
Okay. Yeah.
Janetta.
Yeah, Janetta.
Yeah, I think Dana's work is beautiful. I think Parker's work is beautiful.
Mhm.
They both have the right to express themselves the way they feel. I think there's more backstory and it's more political. The artist that protested her work being shown. I think more of it is maybe their art wasn't shown, and so there's a level maybe of jealousy. She has the right to display that because it just didn't affect the Till family; it affected the world. And Dana and her family and your family and everybody else are part of the world, and so she had the right to display it. And I thought it was beautiful. But again, Mr. Parker had the right to display his, and his was just equally as beautiful. But the protest may have been a little bit out of place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't demand you to understand or hope that you understand my situation if I won't let you express it the way you see it. You know, I can't demand you to sympathize with me if you can't express it, you know, what you see.
Okay. All right.
That's what I feel.
Anybody else have any other opinions?
Yeah, I think this is Wanda.
Yeah, this is who? Wanda?
Like I said, this was the perfect world for everybody. Yeah. If this was a perfect world and everybody was equal.
Wanda, you're not clear.
The same way.
Something wrong with your speaker, Wanda.
Okay, Wanda, I think you need to get closer to the microphone or something.
And there'll be never anyone not African American.
Wanda,
Oh,
something wrong with your speaker, sweetheart.
Or, well, her microphone, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting part of what you're saying, Wanda, but I'm not getting everything.
I can't really speak.
Okay, can you put it in the chat?
Is anything any clearer now?
Yes, now you're good.
No? Okay. I don't know. My
No,
other
you're-
computer broke
Hello?
down. I got it in the shop being fixed, and so I'm using this one.
Okay,
I don't think he could hear me.
all right. Well, there for a minute, you were good. Okay,
Can't hear me. He-
all right. All right. Wanda, do me a favor and send me an email and we'll, you know, and I'll share it with everybody. You know, when we get, you know, to the next class, either Friday or on, well, Monday or Wednesday.
Here it says mute.
No, she's not muted. Okay.
Am I muted? This is Naomi. Can you hear me?
Tell me you're not muted. I can
Okay.
hear
Yes.
Okay, I agree with Janetta, and I feel if you want to paint whatever you want to paint, you can do it. If you want to sing a certain way, that's a compliment to me. And I think that an artist wants to express the problems from a certain group, that's a compliment that you're interested. I think ignoring it is bad. So I think it's wonderful that all people should express themselves.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, personally, I guess my viewpoint is, you know, everything is open
Mm-hmm.
to talk about.
Yes.
Everything is open, you know, to respond to. You know, if you live in this culture, you know, let's say, you know, I as an artist, you know, I particularly like jazz, right? Well, jazz is credited with being, you know, a African American art form, all right? And you know, originally when it started off, it was, you know, but there are many artists today, you know, both black and white and everything in between, Japanese and all around the world, who really love jazz. Okay. In fact, jazz is probably bigger in France than it is in America right now. Okay. So, but it's, you know, it's everybody listens to that music and they respond to it a different way. You know, it means something different to everybody. You know, it's not, you know, necessarily the same message. Just like if I look at an abstract painting, no matter who did it, you know, I might see something in it that you don't, you know, and vice versa. You know, I might have a positive reaction to it. You might have, you know, a negative reaction to it. So, you know, who really knows? But I mean, that's kind of the purpose of art, is that, you know, art, whether it's visual or music or writing, it's this exchange of ideas, you know, and it's and again, this is my view, not everybody holds it, but I think, you know, we need to be more open as a society to listen to all of those views, okay? And to actually really listen, and that's sometimes hard, you know, depending on what's being talked about. You know? Anyway, I wanted to just kind of bring that up because of the things going on, you know, obviously, you know, within the last couple of weeks, but also, you know, because this has been an exchange that's been happening really in the last, say, 20 years. It's been rather prevalent that there's these responses. Now, it happened before as well, but, you know, we certainly, you know, it affects our lives more directly today when it happens today. So, and, you know, in a way, you know, these exchanges, I feel, are, you know, a healthy way of confronting, you know, issues, you know, between, you know, different cultures. And we need to talk about these things, you know, we need to get them out there, you know, and I think Naomi said earlier, you know, it's like ignoring the problem isn't going to solve it. So it's kind of important. Anyway,
Can I
yes. Hey, Avatar.
one thing I wanted to add, I agree with Naomi. There are two things. One is the intent. A lot of people, I'm talking about non-Black, feeling that they cannot be in your skin, but they think they feel the pain and they want to express it. So they express it in their own way, and then it could be misinterpreted. That's one thing. The other one, I heard a Black author this Sunday saying something I thought was very important. He said, it's just like when you go to Alcohol Anonymous, first you have to admit there's a problem. And a lot of people don't actually admit, white people don't admit there's any problem. What's the problem?
Right.
And I think that's important to realize there's something to discuss. There's a problem.
Yeah, and that is one of the key, I think, challenges in our society, is that a lot of people don't want to talk about this. You know, they're not comfortable with it. You know, they don't want to be open, you know, and exchange, you know, ideas or have a frank discussion about it. You know, a lot of people don't want to talk about, you know, the disparity between, you know, people who are well-to-do and those people who are not. And you know, being poor isn't exclusively Black, but, you know, a large percentage of, you know, the Black population does fall into, you know, that category of being poor. And, you know, I think, what was it? It was a conference. It didn't happen that long ago. It was probably about a year, maybe, or within 2 years. And it was called the Poor People's Conference. And it happened in South Carolina. And, you know, it was basically a collaboration between a lot of the local, and it was in, like I said, North Carolina, South Carolina, a lot of the Black churches, but it was also in conjunction with some of the Southern Baptist churches or Methodist churches. And they were talking about, you know, how poverty affects, you know, well, now about 40% of this, you know, of the country's population. Okay. Because we got about 40% of the people who live below the poverty line in this country now. And as, and I can't remember who the speaker was, but he was a Black pastor. And as,
Reverend Barber.
anyway, he was pointing out that the largest percentage of poor people in this country are white.
From the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah. And so, you know, the issues when you start talking about poverty, you know, they should be just as important, you know, whether it doesn't matter what your ethnic background is, you know, it's a conversation that we all need to be having, you know, about like, why are there these disparities in our country right now? And what is the effect of that? Okay. And that's one of the things that, you know, art, you know, and the, you know, the creation of art, you know, that's an open dialogue right there, you know, that people can talk about, you know, and they can talk about it from their own, you know, personal experience. So it's, you know, anyway, moving onward, I wanted to share something with you guys. Okay. In particular, Ilan had done a piece of artwork, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking at these. Okay, yeah, it's right here. Okay. All right, let's do a share on that one. Okay. And anyway, Ilan had done a piece of artwork, and I wanted people to see it. Okay, if I can just find it. Jeez. There we go. All right, that's the one. And I'm going to go down to that real quick because I don't want to run out of time on this. And then I want to talk about some other paintings that you guys have sent in. Okay. This piece right there. Okay. Now,
it's work in progress.
It's a work in progress. Right. Yay. Okay. But when I saw this, immediately it brought to mind another artist that I want to show you guys. And I want to talk about it just briefly. And I want you guys to maybe become familiar with his work. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing that. And then I'm going to go down and I'm going to go. There's a fellow by the name of Chuck Close. Anybody ever heard of him before? Yes, no, maybe? Okay. So this, okay, yeah, it's this one. This is Chuck Close. Can everybody see?
Oh, yeah, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Young African-American guy, right? Okay.
Good.
But now look at, you know, I mean, when you look at him, let's zoom out a little bit.
Very interesting.
It kind of looks like a photograph of somebody, right? A little bit pixelated, right? And then you blow it up. And as you blow it up, that kind of begins to look like Ilan's painting, doesn't it?
It is.
About that. Yeah. Yeah, Chuck Close started off as what they call a hyper-realist painter, okay? And he has evolved his style into you know, what you're seeing right now. And so, yeah, so these are just little color spots. And let's see, you know, here's another one. Again, you know, you begin to look at how he's structuring, you know, these dots, right? And so there may be a red dot, there may be or a red outline, a blue, you know, a green, a yellow. And, you know, he may have 3 or 4 colors in these things. But what happens is optically the color mixes, right, down to being, you know, a flesh tone, you know, or something along that line. And so, you know, you get this optical mixing. When he first started off, I'm going to show you one of his earlier pieces.
It's interesting because about 20 years ago, I saw a photo being done like this. It was all people's faces.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what he does. He, you know, all of his paintings, well, you know, the vast majority of his paintings are really just the face. And the thing is, you know, these are not small paintings. These things are the size of a wall in a museum. Okay, so they're huge. I mean, I think that this is probably like 15 or 20 feet tall. Okay, just this black and white. I think, well, here. There we go. That gives you an idea. Yeah, that gives you an idea of the scale that he's working in. And, you know, and this is when he was young. They were doing, you know, he was working just monochromatically. But again, you know, these very hyper real, you know, almost, you know, photographic paintings, right? Here's a later example that's in color. And again, you know, when you zoom in, I mean, it's like the actual texture of the skin. And again, you know, this is an enormous painting. There would be no way that you could sit here on a small canvas and really achieve, you know, that much, you know, textural detail in surface, right? But again, you know, he's evolved. And where he evolved to was, you know, something more like this, where, you know, he's playing with the optical illusion, you know, he's taking these various colors, laying them next to each other, just like the Impressionists did, to create these color areas of value and temperature, okay? And, you know, when you get zoomed in on this again, see, it becomes totally abstract. See, you know, there's nothing realistic or representational about it. And it's all gridded off, and, you know, it's like each one of these grids, you know, again, is a green, a purple, a red, a yellow, you know, and it's how much of each of that color is in that particular square that creates, you know, the actual value and the things that are around it. So, I wanted to show you his work because, again, you know, Ilan's piece was very reminiscent of that. So I'm going to move on real quick because I want to show some of the work that you guys sent in. Okay.
Have you all seen that commercial where this man takes these clothes and he makes a portrait of these clothes? There's 3 people in it. Have you seen that commercial? Clothes, just regular clothes on the floor. And he puts them together and he makes a portrait of 3 people. It's really, really amazing.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. Yeah, if you've got that. Let's see.
Do you think I have a future?
I see you have a future. Yeah,
Doing an eye of this guy.
yeah, Alon, I think you're on to something here. So yeah, you probably need to kind of pursue that a little bit.
Is Chuck Close C-L-O-S-E?
Yeah,
C-L-O-S-E.
Yeah, yeah. For some reason, and don't ask me why is that not showing up? You know, I want to share it and I don't have a window for it. Oh, wait a minute. Here it is. Okay. Right in front of me. Jeez. Okay. All right. We got it. Okay. All right. So anyway, that was Alon's piece.
Very nice.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, yeah, it was an interesting way to go.
Yes.
Yeah. Now this is a piece that Beverly did that she sent in.
Well,
Oh,
very nice.
Wow.
Oh,
nice, Beverly.
Now,
beautiful.
Now this is the picture that she took. Okay. Now I have an ongoing thing with you guys. You need to take a little more time when you take these photos and take the time to square them up, because here's why. When you do that, that's a little more impressive. You clearly see, okay, that's the painting, all right?
Beautiful.
Okay. Now I did that in Photoshop by distorting and everything else, but taking a little more time, you can get something like that. Okay. You may not be able to get it with the frame totally cropped out of it or whatever, and that's fine. But try to make it at least square, right? So it's not all distorted, right? Okay. Here's another piece. This is Jean Goldstein's. Goldstein. She did some peaches, and I thought that was a really good painting, good representation, good movement, composition, fairly simple, but really nicely done. And then let's see, Elsie Jester. We were talking about, what is it, Adam Miller's work and how dark it was. So this is Elsie's response to that. So it's a female figure. It looks like there's a lot of blood involved. I don't know why. I don't know if she's here and can talk about it, but we only have 2 minutes. So I'm going to rush on through and show you a couple more pieces. John, was working on that piece with the rocks. This is the original photo.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, I think, yeah. No, that's not it.
No.
Yeah. No.
No.
That. Yeah.
I sent you one today. Let's see if I got more on it.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't get that one yet. Okay. But yeah, this is where he's at now. And so again, making those few changes, softening the stairway, and things, putting a little more contrast in the rocks, started bringing all that forward. So
I worked on it today, and talk about how you photograph. I took 2 pictures, one in regular light and one in enhanced lighting.
Mm-hmm.
The painting looks totally different. The
Right.
value, everything changed.
Yeah. Yeah. That lighting will, it can either work for you.
I sent you that as an example of the difference in taking a picture of the painting and different lighting.
Okay. All right. I wanted to
Very
also.
Oh, there's mine. Okay.
Very nice.
Yeah, I also wanted to show you
Oh, beautiful.
Linda Randolph.
Beautiful.
These in. Now, these were all painted from life. Different models that we had at the Benson Center,
Oh,
both indoors and outdoors.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then Naomi, yeah, you sent in a couple.
That's pencil. This the girl, because I had these cheap pencils, and you were showing how to do it, build it up. So I decided to try it.
Okay.
It's the first time I did pencil.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and you got to be patient with it. You can't
Yes.
rush, and you can't put a lot of pressure on it.
Uh-huh.
Build it up slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this piece, and you sent this in a couple of weeks ago. We had
That I did a while ago. That's acrylic.
Yeah. Okay. And so, and then let's see, what else have we got? I think we talked about Surins. And you sent this in to me, and did you
Yes.
get my email in response?
No. Oh, you didn't like it the way it
No.
was
Well,
laying there?
What I wanted you to do was I wanted you to flatten it out.
Yeah, but I didn't get a chance. But that also is pencil.
Okay. All right. But try to do that when
Okay.
when you photograph things, try to get them flat and try